Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. It is Tuesday, and the title is shocking, but it's true. There's a lot of pain out there, and we're going to look at the pain of exactly what's going on because people are definitely giving up hope. It's like it happens every time, but we're going to look at all the data across all the stuff that's happening in the world across crypto, Bitcoin. There are some very positive signs, by the way. Also, some ugly signs. We'll look at other pain that's happening in the other areas of the markets too. So thank you all for joining. TND, Tesla, Cypher Sniper, Shawnee, K8, and everybody else. Thank you for coming. Let's go. And I'm losing my voice already. I've just begun, but this is a disclaimer, not financial advice. As always, yeah, it's been violent out there. We expected Q1 to be bad. Not quite this bad. Anyhow, let's get into some of the ugly stuff first. But first, Soul Bull. I've not had a chance to join his Patreon. If you have not had a chance to join his Patreon, I would highly suggest this. It's a great community. Thank you. Yes, I'm just a mere cog in the wheel, but it is a great community indeed. And the ugly news, let's get into it first. First, crypto over the last 7 days. Literally everything is down. Everything across the board, other than whatever Wolfie is, no idea. Everything is down. And in fact, Zcash dropped another 20%. That thing fell from grace. ICP keeps falling. Tau. A lot of people had hopes on Tau. Remember, if something is pumped hard, it's never a good sign. But again, it was an ugly week, a week to be forgotten. Another nearly 10% off of Bitcoin, etc. Everything nasty out there. In terms of the last 90 days, at the last 30 days, similar nasty. We can skip that. We're still in the ugly section, though, so I do want to keep... Well, let's look at this. Let's see what happened over the last 30 days. The previous chart was the first week. But again, all across the board, really, really, really bad 30 days. In fact, layer ones got hammered. Sui, Ethereum, Solana, etc. Absolutely murdered. Bitcoin down 25% in a month. It's very rare that that happens. But on the other side, you got Hype and Aster, the DEX plays, perp DEXs. They're killing it. Follow the money. They're making money. People are still trading. People are still active. Now, we're still in the ugly section, but I do want to talk about this. Anthropic plug-in disruption. And this guy's face is everywhere. We've been talking about him for a while, but Anthropic announces 10 AI plugins for investment banking, human resources design, and so many other tasks. And the disruption is happening as we speak. It is whacking things. I put this little meme. Now I know how to make memes, but it started with developers and then SaaS software stocks and then security software stocks and then data vendors. By the way, security software and data vendors may be intermixed. They both kind of happen at the same time. Yesterday, Claude Opus 4.6 said it could read COBOL. By the way, there's a huge cottage industry of developers that have been around since, I think, 1957 that are still maintaining mainframes that run COBOL. The companies can't turn them off. But now, it was very difficult to maintain these old machines, but now COBOL can be read by Claude. And IBM fell 18% yesterday. And next knock on the door, allegedly, could be legal technology and professional services like consulting. In fact, the Indian offshore firms are getting hurt hard as well. Everybody's getting hurt. We've been warning about the asteroid that's going to hit the Earth. Again, I also misjudged how quickly it would do damage. And we're only 6 weeks into this year, and trillions have been lost, nearly. It's shocking the pace at which this has happened. Now, let's get into the bad news, which is not as bad as the ugly news, but it's still pretty bad. We are still 5 red months, and just so far in the last, 24 days of Feb, we're down 18.3%. And I had a look, thinking over the last 16 years, how many days have we been down? How many months in Bitcoin's history have we been down 18.3% in a month? And the answer is 18. And that's about 9% of the time. So it's bad, but it's not unprecedented. And part of the problem is there is still no money coming in, at least not from the Bitcoin ETFs. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of red. We had one green week 7 weeks ago, but that seems like an eternity ago. So again, every week, $200 million floating out the door, 300 million, 300 million, 300 million, 300 million, nearly $1 billion. It's just bleeding, bleeding, bleeding. And this is, we'll get to a little point, a little comment later that will reflect exactly what's happening. Another view of digital asset flows. Again, they are in the doldrums. And 300 million out, 200 million of that from Bitcoin, approximately. And then again, that is the 5th consecutive week. And this is, by the way, all global digital asset ETF flows, which includes things like, say, a Swedish ETP or some other thing. And this is reflected sort of, but not necessarily all the time in this chart too. This is 6 weeks of outflows. According to this, only 5. Anyhow, but this chart, by the way, I want to make sure it includes this week so far, which includes yesterday, which was a red day as well. This chart is only up until the end of last week. I want to be very clear on that so there's no confusion. Also, flows by asset. Bitcoin remains the key. Drainer, 250 million out. Ethereum, 36.5 million out. In fact, Ethereum can't catch a break. Vitalik has been selling aggressively over the last few days as well. Multi-asset funds down 32.5 million. But XRP and Solana both positive. And short Bitcoin. Obviously, people pile into short Bitcoin when they are nervous. They buy their insurance that way. And another key point, a lot of people saying, are we going to 30K? Are we going to 20K? Are we going to 50K? Are we going to break 60K? Well, prediction markets are normally pretty good. And it's worth having a look at them because people are spending like $5 million of real money betting on this. So the odds of us dipping through 60,000 in the next, 6 days is 43%, not 50%. So may not happen. And only a 9% chance of us going to 55K and a 2% chance of 50K. So for those of you who are waiting to buy at 50K, that may not happen. So be careful there. Also, final little chart. This is regarding the Bitcoin ETFs. They are the most under their cost basis ever in the history of the ETFs. What this chart basically means is you look at the current price of Bitcoin, and the current price of Bitcoin is at 64K, 65K. The average price that the ETFs have purchased Bitcoin for is $83,000. We did dip below their cost basis before in July and August and September 2024, but it's been a long time since we've been below the cost basis. So is it possible to be here? Yeah. Do we stay here for long? Not normally, but this dip is kind of quite a lot. It's nearly $20,000 under the cost basis. So those people that have bought the ETFs, they're not doubling down, which is typically, if I still have conviction in an asset, this is where I kind of lower my cost basis. But anyway, that's just me, not TradFi. Now, let's get into the good news. Thank goodness. And we're going to look at a ton of charts as well. First of all, somebody is buying. It may not be the ETFs, but 400,000 Bitcoin were purchased ever since Bitcoin fell below $70,000. That's a big bag. Remember, there'll never be more than 15 million. So 400,000 is nearly, call it like a 32nd of the amount. Not bad. Also, this is the big question because everybody is losing hope. Either Bitcoin is dead or it's ready to bounce. This is the 2-week chart. RSI just dropped below 40. And on this time frame, every single time this has happened, it has aligned with the bottom of the market. And a big bounce follows next. But we've heard that before. Charts are different this time. Macro is different this time. Everything is getting disrupted. Bitcoin is somehow correlated to software, which is getting hammered as well. And another chart. We're still in the good news territory. Even though the charts are ugly, they do paint a picture of a bottom. And that's the point I want to get across here. I did touch on this briefly yesterday in DCA, but the hedge funds and institutions have reached a historic extreme in their net long exposure for Bitcoin. They only jump in with this heavy leverage when they are very bullish. Again, unprecedented. We've only been down here 1, 2, 3 times since these things have been alive. And while it doesn't guarantee a straight vertical move, historic suggestions suggest the hedge funds know what they're doing. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Another interesting chart as well, that we are now at the 4th highest supply in loss. This is a stunning number. 10 million coins are underwater. Now, I want to, again, talk about this. This shows you what a market we've been through over the last year, year and a half. There will never be more than 15 million Bitcoin, and 10 million are underwater, which tells me that 2/3 of them has changed hands in the price above where we are now, 64K, 65K. 2/3. That's a historic amount of Bitcoin. That's only happened 3 times before in history. This is the 4th time. And again, when price tanked, you have that large amount of coins, 10 million Bitcoin, flipped into loss. Now, what does that mean? Well, whenever there is such a level of pain, whenever all the kind of optimists are converting to pessimists, you get a thing called a bottom. So I took a little green set of arrows here and I pointed if it does correspond to a bottom. Well, the first time it happened, which was in 2018, it nailed the bottom. That is when 10 million coins were in loss. The second time it happened was in 2019, 2020. That was C19, by the way. That nailed the bottom, March 2020. Third time it happened was in 2022. Again, that also nailed the bottom. So this exact setup, the supply and loss spiking to 10 million, again, has only ever happened before. And each time it happened before, it nailed the bottom. Will history repeat? It hasn't so far over the last year and a half. So throw that in the window or put it in your pipe and smoke it. I don't know, but it is an interesting pattern. We shall see. And I do know that when morale is so low, it can be a good indicator. But we've been through worse storms since I started making videos. Far worse than this. Nor are we in old season yet. Nope. Still at 47. It's been chopping here for like months. I don't even know if I should bother sharing this anymore. Anywho, Ethereum weekly ETF flows are down. Again, just like Bitcoin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of negativity, 50 million out yesterday in just one day. So again, not good. Surprisingly though, Solana ETF flows are up the last 3 weeks. We did have 2 tiny red weeks. One you could argue was a nothing burger. 4 weeks ago, there was a red week. But since then, the money keeps on creeping in. 8 million. Not bad, we'll take it. And Ethereum, this is a crazy thing because every time it's a bear market, I remember when ETH fell to Solana fell to $8. I do remember as well when ETH fell to $90 way back in March 2020 as well, which by the way is on this chart. That is the 1, 2, 3, the second green triangle. That was March 2020. Perfect bottom. So we'll see. But even when Solana fell to $8, the fundamentals were getting stronger and stronger and stronger all the time. And that same thing is playing out right now as we speak with Solana. If we look at the DPIN revenue for Solana in the month of January 2026, a new all-time high, 2.6 million. Again, that's companies like Helium, etc. They're doing well. Record number of users, record number of transactions, record number of revenue made across the whole blockchain and all their dApps. It's pretty incredible. And what's also happening too, getting back to the topic, by the way, of this, again, that it hurt all these different industries, I forgot to add a 7th industry that's being knocked. And this is it. This is the AI agents. The TradFi world that looks and analyzes credit cards like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Capital One just realized, AI agents and crypto are coming for a large swath of financial transactions. AI agents will not be using credit cards. AI agents will not be using bank accounts. AI agents will only be using crypto. So at last, At last. We've been talking about AI and crypto convergence for a year and a half now, but now we can actually point to it and the impact of it, which is pretty impressive. And I touched on this again briefly yesterday, but how it all works. Basically, AI agents already use major L1s, especially Solana, and a little bit of Base too, by the way, because Coinbase are pushing that narrative too. And therefore, stablecoin payments and commerce, because agents need that fast, ultra cheap, ultra instant finality rails for these constant micro payments when they're spending pennies or $1 on something. It is very important that they get less than 1 second finality and less than a fraction of a penny of fees as they go forward. And again, expect a lot more of this. The players are here and they're doing it already. And this will be, humans will not be the first billion to use a blockchain. It will now be AI agents. That's my prediction. We'll see if it works. And this is also, it looks like a negative chart, but bear with me, it's actually a good chart because every time Tether shrinks, it indicates the bottom of a bear. And Tether has lost $3.114 billion in market cap over the last 60 days. And last time it did that, it marked the bottom of the market as well. We shall see. That was the bottom of the bear in November, December 2022. We'll see if history repeats again. I keep finding things that look very interesting, but we'll see. Now, that being said, this is just Tether. The stablecoin market cap for Circle, USDC, has actually grown. Tether has shrunk. Circle has grown. And guess where Circle is minting? The same place DPIN is playing. The same place tokenization is happening. The same place AI agents are processing transactions. It's all Solana. All roads lead to Solana. We're back. But the price sucks. So that's that. So you know what to do next. I didn't have to tell you at this stage. We've been through this rodeo before. Anyhow, stocks. And back to crypto. And a final thought. Crypto never reflects fundamentals. Never. I was hoping, one of my hopes and dreams for 2024 was that it would. It didn't. It didn't. Anywho, moving on to stocks and AI. You can see stocks mostly recovered this last week. Nvidia up 7%. Apple up 5.48%. Google nearly 4%. Microsoft down 3%. Amazon up 5%. Tesla flat, etc., etc. Broadcom up 1.59%. Big bump in Broadcom today, nearly 10%. And what's going on? Well, we look at the fear and greed, 43 compared to the 7 or whatever it is, 5 for crypto. It's very different. Now, there's a couple of things happening. This is a chart that is an ugly chart, but it is an interesting chart too. So a lot of people are drawing lines between Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, and Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio predicts the end of the world if he's correct about the systemic transition and global debt spirals, etc. Bitcoin's role as a non-sovereign monetary asset will become increasingly relevant. And that's kind of what Saylor sees. And Saylor says very clearly in interviews, he sees the future. And however, MicroStrategy is sitting on roughly a 5 billion unrealized loss in its Bitcoin holdings. And you can see they haven't been holding a loss since, again, November 2022. When we know what happened then. Anyway, it was that was a life-changing time, by the way. If you had the courage to jump into a burning building with the right option strategy, absolutely life-changing. Anyhow, are we here again? I don't know. Does lightning strike twice? I don't know. I'm always a little bit conservative about that. Anyway, watch this space. Ray Dalio is predicting fire and brimstone. Saylor sees the same thing. And this should eventually turn on the Bitcoin narrative. But it's always darkest before the dawn. We'll see if that is true in this case. Miners are also pivoting to AI. And people think this is bad for Bitcoin. It's actually not. It's good for miners because it gives them another avenue to not only de-risk their rigs, but also find a way to pay the bills by pivoting a little bit to AI when the market sucks, like when the hash goes to the moon and they can't afford to mine Bitcoin when the cost to mine is 75K, but the cost of Bitcoin is only 65K, they lose 10K of Bitcoin. It doesn't make any sense. But if they can use that energy, which is a bottleneck for the AI revolution, why not? Also, a lot of FUD. I mean, there was like 10,000 articles about, oh, Bittier dumped their entire Bitcoin treasury. Ooh, it's 950 Bitcoin. It wasn't exactly a big part of their business at all. Anyhow, moving on. I hear you ask, so where's the hash at? Well, this is the updated River hash rate across the world. Canada, 2.6%. US, nearly 40% of global hash. Paraguay, due to HEP, hydroelectric power, 4%. Ethiopia, also HEP, 2.6%. China, 11.7%. By the way, when I started making videos, China were over 40%. Now they're 11.7%. It shows you how much the US Bitcoin miners have really jumped in. Russia, 16.4%. Russia's leapfrogged China. Very impressive there. And they know what's up. Dubai, 3.1%. And Oman, 2.1%. Crazy, crazy, crazy world. Anyway, let's look at some charts. First of all, AMD did ink a big deal with Meta. Meta's spending $165 billion in AI, a ton of it into things like hardware. Remember, hardware is hard. In the age of AGI, software is gone. Hardware is hard to replicate. So be where the chips are at, be where the scarcity is at, be where the manufacturing, etc. of stuff is at. From Lisa Su, a huge day for AMD and Meta as they expanded a strategic partnership to deploy 6 gigawatts of Instinct GPUs. They're the custom silicon that AMD build for players like now Meta and Google, etc. And they are very excited to partner. And AI, or the Meta AI group, have very, very big plans. And that's why AMD popped 10% today. By the way, if you look at this chart, this is level 5 on the ATR. It has proved to be pretty good support. We did dip below it hard, beginning of Feb, and a little bit again until the big pounce today. But remember, it looks like this thing doesn't want to be under $200 for very long. So if you don't have a position, it's worth nibbling a little bit on AMD. Nvidia, also, they have earnings tomorrow. Big earnings expectations, and it's strong running into earnings. And again, expect, this is funny because literally everybody praying for an AI bubble to burst. Their key to that happening is for Nvidia to miss earnings. They haven't missed in 3 years. Will they miss? I don't know. But the demand for their things is insatiable. Just like we saw with Meta, the demand for AMD Instinct GPUs insatiable as well. And Nvidia is looking strong going into earnings. But Wall Street is split. Is there that insatiable demand for the Blackwell chips with $500 billion in backlog? Or are the hyperscalers pulling back? I don't think so. I don't think so as well. And they have Rubin coming as well. Now, there is some concern because of memory shortage. I think Nvidia needs to stop making their gaming chips because they don't have enough memory. They're saving the memory for the GPUs for AI. But we'll see. Either way, after the market closes tomorrow, my eyes will be on their earnings, and I hold Nvidia. Also, Tesla, speaking of another company bouncing along support, again, $400 support. For now, months and months, that red line there, very similar to the level 5 on the ATR for AMD. Very good too. If you don't have a position, think about stacking every little dip under 400. The risk reward is very high. Again, one of the simplest things you can do in TA is identify those support levels using simple models, or even just drawing a line on your screen, and you'll see it there. Also, speaking of Tesla Robotaxi is about to hit $400. And this is just observed vehicles. They've got way more than that. But this is from the Robotaxi tracker guy who just got hired by Tesla as well because they liked his work. And it was brilliant. So if you want to get hired in the age of AGI, build something unique that people love. Also, Cybertruck, they cut the price. And this shows you all about price elasticity. If you ever worried about or didn't wonder what price elasticity meant, is basically at a certain price, like $100,000, there's a very limited market today in this. Many believe, like myself, there's a recession going on in many industries. There's not a lot of demand for a $100,000 truck. But if you can cut the price to $59,000, boom, sells out in a day. Literally all of the dual motor, all-wheel drive Cybertrucks were sold out. And now if you want one, you got to wait till October. Ta-da! And that's it. It just shows you when you cut the price of something like a vehicle or something that's sought after, you expand the total addressable market, the TAM. And this is exactly what's playing out here. Simple economics. And Berkshire, let's look at that. I do recommend people have a good cash position in this market at this time, but check this cash position out. $382 billion, Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett's retired since, I think, August last year, but they have a truckload of cash, and they are not stepping into the market. Again, they have enough cash to buy 480 of the S&P 500 companies, the 500 biggest companies in the world. Berkshire could buy nearly all of them, with the exception of 20 companies. That's how much cash they're holding. What the hell can they buy? They got so much cash, even if they deploy, they're going to spike the asset. So, whoever the new Warren Buffett is, if you're listening, the risk reward for buying Bitcoin position and maybe some Tesla before it explodes to $2,000 in the coming years, that's it. And last time in the bear market, I said the same thing. Warren Buffett, if you're listening, buy MicroStrategy and Tesla. And that was the bottom of the bear. I think Tesla was $106, MicroStrategy was $16. Anyway, they didn't listen to me that time, but literally take 100 billion of this, drop it in Tesla, drop it in IBIT or MicroStrategy or Bitcoin. I don't care. And then hold the other $300 billion. Financial advice right there. We'll come back to this video like we did the last one in a couple of years, and we'll see exactly what impact it would have had on the stock. Anyway, this should have been in the bad news section. My God, sorry, it's in the wrong area. But 13% of credit cards are now delinquent, which is extremely bad. If you have a debt that's above 6 or 8% interest rate, if you have a credit card above 15%, 20%, and guarantee it's probably 29%, sell what you can, pay off that debt, because it will cripple you and damage your credit too. Now, back to Bitcoin. If anybody had any questions, why Bitcoin, why hard assets, why hard things, why semiconductors, etc., well, look at this beautiful chart. This is the national federal debt of the United States, growing at an unsustainable rate. By the way, this is not unique to the US. This is across Europe and South America and Asia, Japan, you name it. It's ugly everywhere. They're printing like there is no tomorrow. 38 trillion today. In 10 years, 60 trillion. In 30 years, 150 trillion. If Bitcoin survives, and by the way, by 2035, let me see, is 2035 on this? 2035, 10 years, yeah, 60 trillion in debt. In 2035, 99%, I think, is it 99% of all Bitcoin will be mined? Maybe even more than that. I don't know. I need to check those numbers, but something like that. 9 years from now, it'll pretty much all be gone, apart from 1%, which will be mined over the next 105 years. So it's going to become, it's already super hard, but it's going to become absolutely diamond hard, even harder. But of course, much more scarce. And finishing with meme du jour, classic one, if you like selling puts or buying puts, the best thing about Anthropic is they don't need fundraising. They just buy puts on the IT stocks that they're going to disrupt before they launch. They're plug-in. They can make a fortune. Anyway, hope you enjoy the show. Big thank you as well to the mods in the chat. All these videos are turned into podcasts. Shout out to Buckhorn, DVF430, Andy Pandy, GQ Trader, Joe Biden's Daycare, Swiper No Swiping, Wagabond, and Swiss Guy Richie, and of course, Sean D, T&D, Cypher Sniper, and everybody else are coming. Thank you. Have a good Tuesday. Tomorrow I'm doing something that the Q&A questions have been flooded with a request for me to do a video about how many cybercabs do I need to retire. I will be doing the most detailed financial analysis of that and stress testing it. It won't be trivial to run a fleet of cybercabs, but it could be very lucrative. And then I'll also compare, does it make sense to buy a fleet of cybercabs or just hold a stock? Again, all those numbers will be crunched for you. It'll be a fun one tomorrow. Thank you all for coming. Have a good night. Bye-bye.